I'm McLaughlin from Northern Ireland. I just want to tell you a little bit about our region first. You may not have heard about us. We don't appear in the news very often. I work in a very small NGO. The red dot, is where our office is based. So you can see with the black squiggly line, we're just on the border, Northern Ireland with the rest of Ireland. And you can see on the little small map that we are part of the UK. So I always feel like we have a foot in two different camps all the time. We are part of the UK, we're also part of Ireland, we were part of Europe, we're not part of Europe now, or the EU, except Northern Ireland is. So we now have a border down the Irish Sea between the rest of the UK with Northern Ireland. We're also a very divided society. So we have two main communities, Protestant and Catholic, and that rules every aspect of our life, down to the shops we go to, the pubs we go to, the restaurants we support. You go into a little local shop in the village where I work. We have, we have two little grocery shops, we have two pubs. The reason we have two is we have a Catholic one and a Protestant one. So the Protestants support the Protestant shops and the Catholics support the Catholic shops. And that's a population of about 18,000 in the hinterland. If we don't have separate shops and we just have one shop, then you go to the fridge and we have Protestant milk and Catholic milk. And you know which one it is because of the dairies that produce it. It's in every aspect of our life, even in drumming. We have Protestant drums and we have Catholic drums. Every part of our life is divided. Our names tell us what you are and which box we put you in. So I was telling Bill, who understands the situation a little bit, having a lot of Irish in him, that when I came to choose my children's names, I was very careful to choose names that wouldn't put them in a box, so that my children would be known for who they were, rather than what people perceived them to be. So I chose very neutral names for them. My daughter, on the other hand, has had two little boys, and I chose such neutral names. My son is Thomas, my daughter is Katie, that she says everywhere in the world she goes there are Katies in different forms. So she went the other way and chose her children's names as something that was really unusual, but still that flipped people that couldn't identify what they were. So it's a very sad aspect of our life, but it's also what's inspired me to work. So I was involved in banking and finance in London. I worked there for about 15 years, and I moved back so my children could be educated in this warped society. Because actually growing up with all your aunts and uncles and cousins and granny and grandpa, I think it's really important for children. And for us, the community, develop your children. So if your children are misbehaving in the village, somebody will pick them up on it. You know? So it's not just your responsibility, it's a community thing. But when I brought them back, we would be driving along, and in front of us would be an army jeep with the doors open and soldiers sitting with automatic rifles. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. So I moved into community development. So today I want to tell you a little about it. That's social innovation, which is about community development, creating Edna and Yossi, who I loved. We're talking about identifying the need. So my need was, I wanted to create a more peaceful world for my children to live in that wasn't so divided. And Yossi said the importance of listening and having a win-win situation. So those are all things that really rung through to what I do, what I've always done. So if you ask me what the Rural Centre does, which is an NGO set up in 1993, we promote peace building and respect for cultural diversity by connecting people to collaborate and build relationships. And when we talk about cross-community, we talk about Protestant and Catholic. When we talk about cross-border, we talk about between Northern Ireland and the rest of Ireland, and then other regions of Europe. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that helps peace building. So I think of ourselves, those who are involved in community development, as hubs in a wheel. We know where everything is, and we know where the connections are in business, we know where the connections are in academia, but we also know it at a really low community level. And I don't think of it as one is higher or one is lower, we all need each other. By working in European projects, we take people out of their region, out of these two divisions, and we introduce them to Polish or Italian or Latvian or Lithuanian or French. And in doing that, they discover they have a lot more in common with each other than they do with their European partners. So we like to work mostly with women and youth, but we work across all sectors. So these are some of the projects that I'm involved in. You can see I work with youth. We identify the need. So for young people it can be multimedia, ICT, anything technology. But in everything we do, if we need 20 people in a room to run a project, we try to have 10 Protestant, 10 Catholic. Because our lives are very divided, so when our children start school, they go to one or the other school. And they go all the way through until maybe they go to college or university and work, and that might be the first time they have the opportunity to meet someone else. And it's so bad that even on the school bus, one group will sit in the back and the other group will sit in the front. So I always feel that for me in social innovation and all my other social innovators, all my other community development workers, we're always swimming against the stream, trying to mix and mingle everything. So I work in agriculture, I work in social farming, work in tourism, work with diversity, work with our ancient heritage, our history, but in all that we do, we try to get that mix in everything. So for example, I've taken a group of 50 farmers to Poland before, and they love meeting other farmers in other parts of Europe, and they discover that they're facing the same problems, the same issues, and on the journey home they're inspired and motivated by what they've just seen and heard and learned from the Polish farmers that they've met. So Edna was saying about win-win. So the benefit that they get is sharing skills and expertise and knowledge. But what we get is that we've just put 50 people on a bus who, when we put them in the middle of Poland at an agricultural show and say, go and explore the show, go and organise your lunch, they all huddle together because they have no experience of the Polish language. It's entirely foreign to them, and we disrupt their reality, their normality. And suddenly, when they're huddled together in groups of 4 or 5 or 6 across community, they suddenly realise that they're all very Northern or North Irish. So it's a really good way of creating bonds. Putting people on the bus, people generally, when they get on a bus, get off a bus and get back on and sit in the same seats. We discover that when we take them away, they get off the bus, they get on and they sit in the same seat. We get off, we have lunch, we go to a visit, they get on and they sit in different seats because they want to continue a conversation with somebody that they've just met. So the most important things for me in any study visit is the coach trip and the meals. Because they'll end up sitting beside somebody that they hadn't planned because they were late down to dinner or something. And then they'll discover, Bill said that about sharing food is a really important thing in culture. So that's our 50-50. Bill also talked about empathy. So we start helping people understand that the other is not so different to them. And we do that at all levels, at youth, but we do it right through to, we work with community groups or elderly who are in their 70s and 80s, because I also work in school. And I can tell when children are talking to me, and I run intercultural competence training with children in schools, I know when the children say something to me, is it their words, is it their parents' words, or is it their grandparents' words? So I don't think working with young people is just a solution. We need to work across all ages, because I think you're mostly influenced by what happens in your family home and the things that you hear from them. So I always like to question them a little bit more, and I know that they haven't thought it through. They've just repeated what they heard. So that networking and collaboration is really important, which we heard a lot about with all our speakers and on our panels. So I remember that our speaker over here spoke about NGOs, and he said how important it was to collaborate, and that NGOs normally collaborate with municipalities, but not so much with academia. And he talked about the crown. Forget about your crown. So I disagree with Edna in that most innovation happens in cities. Yes, technically it does. It's the stuff you hear about. Everything we do is sucked into Belfast, or into Dublin, or into London. But I think when you live in a rural area, you have to be incredibly creative. And that goes from, we have this thing called flash the lights. So when you're driving along, and we all speed in country areas because there's not many cars on the road, and somebody flashes you, and the kids used to say, you know a lot of people, Mum. But they're flashing me to say, there's a police checkpoint ahead, and you're going to get caught for speeding, so slow up. So in country areas, you tend to be very creative, and you look after each other. And we do that as well because we don't get the financial resources that you get in cities. So we've got to find ways of getting benefit from each other. So as an NGO, we do rely, as Edna said, a lot on volunteers, but volunteers with passion. And people dismiss volunteers, but volunteers can often be professionals in their other life. And they give up some of their time to help a cause or something that they have a passion and are committed to. NGOs are also flexible. So I work a lot with our local councils, our municipalities, and I don't need to put things through 3 committees that only meet every other month to do something. I can agree it, talk to the directors, and we're practically doing it the next day. So we have a flexibility that sometimes you don't have in other sectors. And the fact that we're not rich, I think, works to our advantage. Because if you're rich and you're running a project, you need a piece of equipment, you just buy it. And then it'll sit there, and you might use it for another project. If you're poor, you think, okay, who's got that piece of equipment? And as Edna says, where's the win-win? So how can we deal together? How can we collaborate? If you give me this piece of commitment or equipment for my project, what can I give you back in benefit? And sometimes if they're big organisations, they have to tick boxes about supporting people from poorer communities or something like that. So there's our source for driving out any of our training materials or stuff like that. So we borrow, but at that borrow is collaboration. And we network because we're always trying to think, how can I help that group? How can I help that university? How can I help that business? And you're always thinking about what have they got, what they need, and we act as little matchmakers in the middle and pass it on. I don't say we're community leaders because we're never in the forefront. We're always in the background somewhere, nudging people forward. We never want to... So it's a win-win for both. Like we work with the university who produced a wonderful piece of research about something, and you were talking about the crown, and you tell the community, and the community don't appreciate how many years of work that took, how much funding it took, how much finance, how much collaboration with other universities right across Europe and the world. You'll get that crown in your own community, in your own bubble. They'll know how much effort went into that. What you need to think about is, there's no point having a crown for something that doesn't give benefit. And if you just circulate it within your own bubble, that's as far as it goes. So we try to get people out of their own bubble and finding where can we spread out whatever it is you have, your training, your information, your advice, your research. Because that piece of research could really help a small community group argue the need for funding. And if they have the backing and can include a piece of research from a renowned university, that strengthens their proposal. So it's all about, don't be concerned about your crowns outside, you'll get your crown and your glory within your own bubble. It's about thinking of the benefits that what you've just created can be of to other people. Find people in the middle who can help drive it out. We can help you find the focus groups. We can give you that diversity that you mightn't have in a city, as in the economic sectors or whatever. So that's a little bit about our community development. And my other two colleagues, Camilla and Anna, are going to talk much more about economic entrepreneurship, marketing and strategy, the more business side of women in innovation. But we have that as well, because what the community drives eventually gets through to policymakers or funding bodies or government organisations. So we have three very good organisations in Northern Ireland that really support women in innovation, but particularly in the business sector. And that's Women in Business, Invest Northern Ireland and Catalyst. And they do all the things we've been talking about. So Invest Northern Ireland connects colleges and universities and training centres. It provides networking, it gives advice on developing a business plan, research and funding, mentoring and coaching, all those things. Women in Business is for women, by women. Again, a non-profit organisation, and they do a lot of networking and mentoring and bringing women together. A lot of women entrepreneurs are sole workers, sole founders, sole business. So I'm also part of a network as well as Women in Business, just a local one. And we have our meeting on the last Thursday of every month. And we treat it like we all work in different departments, but we're all coming together. So we will have marketing experts, we'll have financial advisors, we will have people expert in IT. And it's like you meet your colleagues and you say, okay, I'm having to do this, or it's at the end of our financial year, and what do I need to do about this? So we help each other. And it's a really good way, because sometimes it's a lonely business working on your own, male or female. And the other one is Catalyst. And this creates an open space where all these people meet. So it's a big open office space with desks and all sorts of technology, meeting rooms, everything. And they bring university students, they bring small businesses who've got an idea, and they talk. And I liked what the person said yesterday on the panel about you don't talk about problems, you identify needs, and you reframe it as challenges. So it's how you reframe things so that, sometimes people are intimidated by big organisations or academia who come and talk about, using everyone's in their little niche area, and the acronyms for everything. So sometimes it can be quite intimidating, so it's nice to reframe how you say things, and it's not anybody's fault because you get used to speaking in those terms. Just some examples. I chose them as innovators because they're award-winning, they've won prizes. How do I choose whether one person is a better woman innovator than the other? So this one is TACRAP, which is eco-friendly packaging. Young Enterprise Northern Ireland is that it helps educate young people in how to be entrepreneurs of the future. Destination is a reality app that allows people to practice their tourism skills, not with real people where it can go horribly wrong. Brainwave Bank is a neurological technology that can help identify Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Cohort Space is the equivalent of that bigger organisation I told you about, but just working in a small area. cooperative housing. Bubble Bum I like, because this is obviously a mum who moved between cars and buses and needed a car seat that worked and you could unpack it. Employ Mum is a lovely initiative because a lot of women entrepreneurs have to balance family life with work life, and generally, not always, take on childcare responsibilities. And then when they want to return to the workplace again, they find it difficult finding employment or upskilling to be able to get back into the employment that they had. So those are just a few, but I leave it to my other panellists, Camilla and Anna, to tell you a little bit about women from the entrepreneur side, but I wanted to focus on the social innovation and community development building. So thank you.